These guided notes will take you through finding 1% of a quantity and treating that as a little building block to find other larger percentages. So as you can see, what's circled in black here is kind of the key fact we're going to use today. What it says is 1% of a quantity can be found by moving the number blank spots down the number line. So we're going to fill in this blank together, and what that number is actually going to be 2 spots. 1% of a number means 1/100th, so if you divide by 100, you would find that quantity. And dividing by 100 simply is just going to move the number 2 spots down the decimal. So in our first example, what's 1% of 500? Think of pushing that 500 2 spots down the decimal. So if we push it, decimal is going to move over not once but twice, which leaves us with an answer of 5.0, which is really just 5. In the next example, we need to find 1% of 85 and 50 hundredths. Again, if you're going to push it down 2 spots, it's going to bump the decimal all the way over to here, which leaves us with a final 1% of actually 855 thousandths, using our good vocab. The next one is simply the number 14, and you can see as a reminder that decimal is added in. If there's no decimal there, it's just all the way to the right. So if we push this one over 2 spots, 1, 2, we're going to be left with a quantity of 14 hundredths. And our last example, we're going to do 1% of 2014. So again, push that down 2 spots. We're going to end up with a quantity of 20 and 14 hundredths. So to answer that question, how do we find 1%? You divide by 100, or you're just going to move the decimal 2 spots. And now we'll go on to the next page and use that 1% to come up with more larger percentages. So this next question, you can fill in the blanks however you want, a little bit of a Mad Lib here, but what we're really going to do is use our 1% trick to find 15%. So what the word problem says is, on a dinner date with blank, fill in whoever you'd like, you decide to pick up the tab. Since you went to blank, which is a very famous restaurant, the meal cost $150. So again, in those first 2 blanks, put whoever you'd like. Go on a date with whoever you'd like, go to whatever restaurant you'd like, but the problem is we have a $150 meal. It's going to be a 15% tip. So we're going to use our strategy from earlier. What is 1% of $150? Well, if we flash back to that last slide quick, you're going to need to move that 2 spots or divide by 100. So when we come back here, don't forget that 150 is a whole number, so that decimal is actually at the end. If we push it over 2 spots, we're going to find that 1% is actually just $1.50. Well, if this is 1%, how do we turn that into 15%? Well, you're going to simply multiply by 15. So if we do $1.50 15 times, you can do that by hand, you can do that on a calculator, you're going to find that that comes out to be $22.50. So when this says how much should be left as a tip and what is the final cost including tip, we've already answered how much the tip is. To find the final cost, we'll actually add that on. That's how that works in real life. So we had $150 for the meal. We're going to throw on a $22.50 tip, and that'll give us a final total of $172.50. Now in this last question, the percentage looks a little more difficult because you can see that 12.5% in there, but it won't be any different than the last question we did. So again, you have a Mad Lib again. You can fill it in however you want. You are playing against blank in a competitive game of blank. I'm going to say we're going to play against Michael Jordan in a competitive game of basketball. And I can't write tiny enough to fill that in, but I think you get the point. A bet is made that if you win, you get 12.5% of their money. So if Michael Jordan has $8 million, how much money will you earn if you win? Well, don't let all the words overcomplicate this for you. The bottom line, Michael Jordan has $8 million. Let's write that down. We're going to find 1% of this first and use that to find 12.5%. As we did over and over again, the 1% is you're going to have to move that decimal 2 spots. don't forget an 8 million whole number, that decimal's at the end. So if we push that over 2 spots, it'll slide it into that position, as you can see right there. That would give us a value, 1%, of $80,000. Now, if we want to find 12.5%, we're going to do what we did in the last question, which is to take our 1% quantity, and we're just going to actually multiply that times 12.5. Makes sense. 1%, 12.5 times would be 12.5%. And when you multiply that out, 80,000 times 12.5, this gives us a total of an even $1 million, which is kind of neat. It looks like 1 million out of 8 million would be 1/8, so that 12.5% you found must also mean 1/8. But anyway, 12.5% of 8 million is $1 million. So hopefully this video helped you with these guided notes, and now you're going to be well prepared to complete any of the percentage questions that we do in the upcoming days.